To this weekly happiness question and answer show where we're really excited about hearing your life questions. Let me give you the quick spiel so that you know what's going on, and then we'll get on with it. This show happens every Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. UK time. Go to bigquestionsanswered.com. You can see it down there somewhere. Where's my finger? To find out about past and future shows. In this show, we talk about everything to do with life because everything affects our happiness. That includes, for example, the environment, finding your purpose, and even God. The answers I give are based on logic, science, Buddhism, Judaism, Mother Earth faiths, Islam, and other spiritual traditions. Len's answers. Hello, Len.
Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for having me on the show, Khalid. It's lovely to be here. Yes, the answers I give are based on a background of starting out with Christianity, which are eventually abandoned after 30 years, and I embraced esoteric spirituality on the Western mystical system called the Kabbalistic esoteric Kabbalah, then a bit of into that, a bit of Hermetics and a bit of Judaism and a little bit of understanding of Buddhism as well, and a bit of Hinduism, working specifically with the chakra system and the higher self connection. And hypnotherapy is what I do nowadays, where we connect to the higher self. So that's pretty much my influences from which I work.
Cool. Thank you for introducing your spiritual background. So what's supposed to happen? Well, you made a small mistake already because I probably didn't tell my 8-year-old controller exactly what was supposed to happen. That 1 minute 30, that side over there, is supposed to be the introduction time, and then it's supposed to go to 3 minutes. So whatever. Let's just get on with it. Yeah, let's just see what happens. I'm going to do a 1 minute 30-second answer to this. So Sundis, what you need to do is press the timer. We're going to get it started. Do you know the timer? Yeah, actually, you know what? Put the question in. That's good. Give me an extra few seconds. So put the question in. So we've got a main topic today, which is depression truths. Yep, you got it up there. Awesome. And the time has started. Let's get going. So the reason why I called it depression truth, because I think we've been so politically correct about how we give answers to this topic about depression. We're being really safe and thinking or expressing depression as if it's some mystical disease and it's nobody's fault. And what I want to say, which might sound a little bit harsh, is that it's your fault if you're suffering from depression. Now, that might sound like a really harsh thing to say, but what happens if a doctor never told you that the reason you're suffering from depression is because you did X, Y, and Z, and you just carried on suffering from it? So what I want to say very briefly is that depression is caused by us doing things in our modern society like not talking to our parents, not talking to our neighbors, not really expressing your love and true feelings towards each other. And if we can fix that, then we'll be a lot happier. That's why I'm excited about this topic. There we go. That was good. That was all right.
Yes.
You can start whenever you want.
There we go. Thank you. Yes, depression seems to be something that's a lot more prevalent. There's a lot of noise coming from some. I'll pick up a noise.
Oh, sorry. I'll close the door. I forgot about that. You can.
Okay, right. Where there's a problem nowadays is we find that people are a lot more depressed than previously. But if you look at the way society is going, if we are constantly glued with our screens to our eyes and faces to screens like iPhones and iPads, and this is where you spend 80% of your time, that's not what we are supposed to be doing. That's not what we are here about, what we are there for. The human experience is one of connection, about talking, communication, and spending time together. And sitting in a room on your own with games and consoles and iPhones and iPads is not helping. So, to follow Russell Brand's explanation, he says society as we know it is collapsing, and people are starting to recognize that the reason they feel like they are mentally ill is because they are living in a system that is not designed to suit the human spirit. So, what do we do to change that? To change that, we will have to make sure you put that gadget down. You start face-to-face communication with one another, connecting with one another on a personal level, enjoying each other's company, making sure you spend enough time going out for your walks, walking around, fresh air, nature, just getting out there and doing fun things. 10-pin bowling on a 10-pin bowling evening with a group of people, good, fun, healthy stuff, not necessarily always glued to a screen somewhere. So a lot of souls will come into the earth plane and feel that this is their first time in the earth plane from a hypnotherapy point of view, and it's a toxic environment that we are living in. They are not used to this. So for them, it's a shock to the system. And there are ways and means to combat that using meditation capabilities, connecting to your higher self for guidance and getting the answers. But we as a people, as a species, meant to communicate with each other. And that is pretty much what we're supposed to be doing, connect. And that's where I'm going to stop.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's actually quite hard getting used to, like, we were speeding through for 1 minute 30 seconds, now like 3 minutes feels like forever suddenly.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a question from Amir. Let's see it. Cool. Assalamu alaikum. So that's the Muslim way of saying peace be upon you. I mean, it basically means I wish you well. Wa rahmatullah. That also means like the grace of God and His blessing. Wa barakatuhu. So very nice creed. Okay, that wasn't even a question. Sorry,
that was just a greeting.
I have to get
Good
a bit more
evening to
professional.
you.
That was a greeting. I appreciate it. Wa alaikum assalam. Peace be upon you too. That's actually a very ancient greeting, common between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So it's a lovely greeting.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll probably see a question from him in a minute. I think he's warming up. Okay, so let's see what this is. Have you ever experienced any kind of divine revelation from God? So I love this question. It's a question from a friend of mine. And I think it's so important because anybody searching for their place in the universe, one would be, they'll be questioning, like, how can I talk to God if a God exists? And that was really important to me personally for many, many years. And my answer is that I've had I have a relationship with God which doesn't involve talking. So no, I haven't had word put in writing or anything like that. And that used to be really important to me because I really wanted to hear from God. And I realized that was a kind of arrogance. Why do I need to hear a certain sound from God? Why is that important if you can have a continuous relationship with Him? So I'll give you just an example of my personal experience. So there was a time when I was an atheist and I said to God in a station, I totally don't believe in you, but I will give you a moment to prove yourself, prove that you exist, show me. And literally in 0 seconds, I had thoughts put into my head, and within 0 seconds, I was convinced that God exists. Like, there were a whole bunch of thoughts that went along the lines of that there is not enough time in the universe for us to have been made, this amazingly complex thing. Yes, evolution exists, but how could it have created all these amazing creatures? Like, this whole bunch of ideas that made it like almost basically irrefutable that God exists. And that wasn't with the use of words would have taken forever, and maybe I would have forgotten them. But these ideas that God doesn't need to communicate with these simple words. And besides that, God says that if you listen to Him then he will show you the way. And there's a beautiful saying in Islam that goes along the lines of, if you listen to God, then God will be the hand with which you fight, the feet with which you walk. If you take one step towards God, God will come running towards you. So God is very present in our lives if you make an effort towards him and listen to him.
Yes.
Cool.
Agree. Yes. My personal experience with God was that for 30 years I would pray and ask questions, ask for guidance, and I did come to a place in my life where one day I said, there's got to be more than this. It can't just be looking at the Bible to get the answers. It used to be a matter of asking for guidance and then paging through the Bible, looking for an answer, and then sometimes a piece of a scripture would jump at me as an answer. That technique is known as divination. I've learned that God speaks through what is called synchronicity. God can speak to you through an advert on a billboard at the bus stop. But God can speak to you through the yellow pages if need be. It all depends on how open you are to hear the message, to receive the message, and understand the message. Very often God speaks to me through you, or you speak to me, and that could be God speaking to me in that way when people speak to one another. It may just be the answer you need at that moment. So God speaks to us through synchronicity. From the higher dimension perspective, as a hypnotherapist, we now have the access to the subconscious, and we find the subconscious is a doorway. And when we bypass your ego mind, your conscious mind, in the subconscious, that doorway that literally opens up wide for you, you can start calling forth the source essence, the essence of source that lives in you, and you can have a conversation, an intelligent conversation, and they will tell you things that you are asking, giving you the answers you want in a way that you can understand it. So you can speak to your higher self. You can speak to the divine source himself, God, if you want to call it Allah, whatever name you want to attach to them. You can speak to Jesus. You can speak to Muhammad. You can speak to literally anyone and have that conversation. John the Baptist, Abraham, for that matter. The beauty of it is that through that subconscious, in the higher realms, the subconscious of the collective of humanity is all connected, joined. So they are all talking to each other, being together one another. It's a big collective. And that's the beauty of the whole thing, is that when you speak to an archangel through the subconscious, he will pretty much back up whatever the divine is saying, what source is saying, what Yeshua is saying, anyone else is saying for that matter, including the higher self. The higher self is like part of your assigned overseer to look after you in this life, just like a guardian angel, as it were, other than the guardian angels that you already have that are assigned over you. So yes, how do they speak to you? In the higher dimensions, telepathy. But where we are, we want to hear the words. So very often, if you more relaxed you are, the easier it is to receive those thought messages that you just mentioned earlier. That's the beauty of it. So meditation is about relaxing and hearing those thought messages. That's how I received my divine
revelation. I just like to say that although we come from really different backgrounds, we don't even agree necessarily on lots of things, but there are so many things we do, like just like this idea that you can hear the message of God through a bus advert or something. If it helps you, that's what matters, right?
Yes.
Cool. I love that. Okay, let's see what we got next, Sundus. Sundus is my 8-year-old daughter controller here.
Quick. She ticketed the brother already.
Have you clicked on it? Oh, she's done it. Okay, yes, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not professional. Don't worry, I'm going to kill some more time. Don't worry. Okay, how can we trust the Quran is preserved if God let the Torah, Injeel, etc., brackets, previous revelations be corrupted? Fantastic, very important question. So, according to Islam, all religions are true at their origins. The Quran says, we have sent a messenger to all people. And that's why, for example, I can believe in Buddhism, because I believe Buddha to be a prophet God. And you might even debate, did he believe in God? We can talk about that as well. But all the way to these kind of Mother Earth faiths of South America, who basically say Earth has got its own sort of spirit. And I totally believe that. That totally makes sense. You know, spirit as in a powerful, all-present force. That's basically God for me. So, but all these different religions had different purposes for different times. So, for example, Islam is the first religion that says it's for all humanity. You might be surprised. You might think, for example, Christianity was supposed to be for all humanity. But if you actually read the Bible, it says that Jesus actually said many times, I've only come for the Israelites, these 12 different tribes that belong, are the 12 tribes of Israel. So they have their time. There was, according to my understanding of Adam, there were many Adams. There were the beginning of different phases of evolution or different tribes that started humanity, and they were given faith. But we don't need to follow those basic faiths, because our level of development is far beyond that. We've got things like the internet, we've got international communication. What do we do now? So those faiths are allowed to decay and go away. But the fascinating thing is, when God wants to protect a faith or a teaching, he does it immaculately. Like, when I say immaculately, for example, the Quran, there's a copy of the Quran up in Birmingham. That's a part of England, if you don't know it. And it's basically, it is exactly the same as the Quran we've got now. So God does protect scriptures or laws given when he wants to. So.
Right. I discovered a pattern when I'm starting now. I discovered a pattern in how a religion would start at a high level and then over time become corrupt. And then a new wave begins, a new religion or a new prophet shows up on the scene, or a new messenger, and he starts with the purest of intentions, and over time it becomes corrupt. And you can even see that in the Egyptian traditions, when the Egyptian old priests started with a religious system, and then it became corrupted. The priesthood became corrupted, and the priests from the Egyptian system got their stuff from the Atlanteans, the old Atlantis group, and the Atlantis group gave their information to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians got corrupted. And then once again, over time, every religion starts high, ends up low. So we have a problem here. It's a human problem. Over time, in the constant lack of awareness of where we are, we become corrupted. And that is because we are going through what we call the third density. In the third density, you are isolated. You have the appearance of the isolation from one another, the isolation from source, from the divine, and you are supposed to be clawing your way back to that revelation, that understanding of the fact that we are actually connected and we are all one. And that's what making this whole thing difficult. I'm of the belief that every book you read, every religious experience you have, every message you hear from someone, question it, check it out. Do not let your critical mind in that way go to sleep. Don't be gullible like I used to be and believe every word that is preached from a pulpit, because it doesn't work that way. You cannot be gullible. You have to test everything for yourself and check it with your soul. If it does not align with your soul, with your source essence from within, it is toxic and you need to walk away from it. Let it go. This is how I arrived at a place where I eventually, when I started looking into the New Testament, not so much the Old Testament, but the New Testament, I discovered that it's probably about 50-60% fabricated. A lot of things where they say Jesus said this and Jesus said that. He did not even say that himself. Someone said that, and they just ascribe that to Jesus now. Most of the New Testament or church beliefs follows the belief system of somebody called Paul, who did not even sit within the 12 disciples circle, receiving the ministry, the teachings of the esoterics mysteries. Paul just made it up as he went along. So you can't go by that.
Wow, we agree on so much stuff. Anyway, cool. We've got a question. I do believe the Messiah. Is that a question? Is that the bottom? Oh, you have to go from the order from the top, yeah? So, yeah.
Yes, cool. Michael.
So,
yes, we do. He did come for the whole world at some point, but that's not necessarily in the Bible.
Cool. Yeah, we'll come to you, Michael, but thank you. We're very excited that you're here. So, due to an extensive lockdown period, many people developed anxiety, stress, and afraid of socializing with people. The aftermath of this pandemic resulted in the rise of mental health issues. Very good. It says half. I think that means, I'm not sure what that means, or is that some sort of, but anyway,
no,
I'm just going to guess that half means something.
There's two parts involved there. There's
is it part one or two?
And then you'll see there's another question, part 2 of 2 is further up.
Oh, it's all at the bottom, Sindis, at the bottom, right at the bottom. Sindis, click on it. Okay, don't worry, I'll answer the question in time, inshallah, God willing. Isolation and home working only increased the exposition to technology and the use of social media, and it seems to last for a while. What is your suggestion? Great. Okay, so I think that every technology, so technology is not evil by itself, just like capitalism is not evil by itself. You know, money is not evil. It's just how we use them. In fact, so you're talking about, in summary, what you're saying, Amir, is like, is technology evil? Is technology separating us? And is the pandemic just encouraging us to overuse technology? And I think technology can save us so much time. Imagine we still had to send a letter to the other side of the world and it takes 6 months. We could not even send our pictures across, and we couldn't be sharing things like we are right now. So technology has so much benefit, but what we have to do is use it properly. And what the real cause of depression, if you're looking at the big picture, people who do not have a purpose in their lives are finding a lot of misery. People should be incredibly happy with the amount of technology that is making our lives so much easier. But we're misusing it because we don't know any direction in our lives. So what we do is we misuse that technology and watch TV by ourselves and don't talk to our parents, don't talk to our neighbors and things like that with all the extra time that we have. So we're just misusing technology, is my short answer. And we need to do spiritual things. We need to do social things, because that's what psychologists have told us make us happy.
You can have another minute and a half, because you only started answering this question a minute and a half into it if you want it. Okay.
I love that you're offering it, but it just helps me with the editing and this timestamps as well. I'm being a little lazy, right. So you go for it.
Right, yes, we have a problem. It's a problem that we feel from the higher self perspective and the higher dimensions perspective, that the current pandemic, as we are understanding it to be on the earth, has caused a lot of people to now be in isolation. We're not allowed to associate with one another, mix one another for extended periods of time. That in its own is adding to the toxicity of the society in its state of collapse, as Russell Brand says. I'm going to reiterate those words by Russell Brand. Russell says society is collapsing, and people are starting to recognize that the reason they feel like they are mentally ill is that they are living in a system that is not designed to suit the human spirit. So we have to understand that we are meant to live in a system that's suitable for us. We are social animals. We like to socialize with one another and communicate with one another. And when people in government and in control tells you you're not allowed to speak to each other or be with one another or associate with one another unless you are doing it from behind a screen, That's not helping. It's not healthy mentally. So we seem to have a problem with where these control systems will have to collapse, unfortunately. That's something that's not going to be easily done. Systems are in place from the higher dimensions, according to the higher self collective, to bring these control systems down in order for us to arrive at a place in our evolution as a race, as a species, as a collective, to transcend the current control systems. And the control systems that are currently in place are toxic. It's controlled by the elite, by the interest-based economy and whatever other consumerism economy and things like that are not healthy for us. So those are all systems that will need to be eradicated in order for us to be restored to a place where we can be in harmony with one another, in harmony with the environment that we are living in the societies that we are living in the communities that we are living in. So this is where I'm saying that just give it time. These systems are coming down. And we need to just push back where we can with these systems. Do what you can to avoid being locked down and in isolation. Meditate. Go and spend time with people. Go and have a coffee now that the lockdown is easing with a friend in a Starbucks or in a garden or in a park. Do that.
Cool. Okay, so Sundis, because I love any kind of participation, can you click through them? Says Anwar Ahmed, click. So he just said something. He said, that was a good answer, mashallah. Mashallah means like, with the power of God. So God helped you give an answer. Then Michael Taylor, next, just keep going down the list. Yeah. So go to this one there. Because we want to make sure everybody who said something is shown. I suppose people can see each other's comments anyway. I do believe that Messiah, Yeshua, came for the whole world. So I imagine that means the Jesus. Is that you know better than me, Len? Yeshua, is that the original
Yeshua
Hebrew for Jesus?
the Aramaic name for Jesus is Yeshua. Yes.
Cool. Should we take? I'll take that as a question. I suppose. Let me click on the second one because I think it's part of the same thing. That response was an opinion to which you tell me to test. I'm not sure what that means, but I think what do you think that means, Len?
I have no idea what that means. Michael, what is it you are trying to ask us here? What do you want us to test? Yes, Yeshua did come for the whole world. He had a message for all of humanity. That much I can tell you. It's just that the Bible version of the message got twisted, and unfortunately, people don't follow Jesus. They are following Paul, pretending to follow Jesus. That's pretty much where we are at now, because Jesus only came with one message, and this is the gospel of the kingdom. And the kingdom is a concept within the construct of the esoteric Kabbalah, the 10 spheres. And if you'll have to look into the Zephyr Yetzirah in order to understand what the Kabbalah is, what the whole system is. And that's where it opens you up to the multi-dimensional, multiverse aspect of the all that is, and how we are within that, but we are also a multi-dimensional being as a fragment of the divine, of source, of God, having this experience, temporary experience as a human being. So you will understand that as a multi-dimensional being, you have an intellectual side, you have a dimension, you have a mental dimension, you have an emotional dimension, you have a physical dimension, you have various dimensions to who you are, and this is and a spiritual side to your dimension as well. And there needs to be an awakening on these various levels. Now, the chakra system of the Hindus allows you to awaken all of those. In the Kabbalistic system, the spheres in the tree of life represent something similar to the esoteric Buddhist system of the chakra system. So you can either follow the one or the other, but they both lead to the same path, which is the awakening of all these levels of awareness. That's pretty much my answer to that. That's the message of Jesus.
Cool. So this okay, you can keep it on that. So what Michael Taylor said was that I'm making a claim that's not based on reality or something about Jesus, and apparently his teaching was for all of humanity. And I would agree with Len in some ways, because according to the Bible, so Len says, Messiah's teaching is not just limited to the Bible. Is that right, what you were saying? Yeah?
Yeah, it transcends the
Yeah.
Bible as we know it.
Cool. But for me, I'm just going to stick with what does the Bible say? And so Jesus does say, I've only come for the lost sheep of Israel. So that's kind of basically a quote from the Bible.
Yeah.
So he was very clear about that. And a lot of people, might be surprised by that, but you can check it up in the Bible.
Yes.
It's very easy to check out nowadays. And he said it in a number of ways, like he refused to talk to certain groups of people because they were not Jews. He's very clear about that again. So and we can go into more detail. For example, he was a Messiah, right? He was a Messiah to the Jews. So the Jews would be very shocked that if he was a Messiah, and they were a bit annoyed that he claimed to be a Messiah. And if he came and said, well, I'm a Messiah and I'm telling the whole world about this Jewish religion, they would be really confused, and you probably would have seen that in the Bible, like, hang on a minute, you're the Messiah, which means you're here for us Jews, and I'm a bit confused. The Jews would have said, why are you talking to the rest of the world? Why are you talking to the Gentiles? These are the non-Jews. And he was very clear about saying that he's not come to talk to them. So it's actually quite a clear teaching on behalf of Jesus. And I totally agree again with Len, that it's St. Paul, so-called St. Paul, maybe let's not get into that, but he basically said the opposite of Jesus. This is the person who came after Jesus had gone. I believe he survived and continued his mission because he said he would go to the 12 tribes, and they were, all the way spread out all the way to Kashmir and different places. So, but, some people, most Christians would say that he died. Okay, so let's just say after his time in Judea, after he'd gone from there, St. Paul came along and said basically everything the opposite of Jesus taught his whole life. He said you don't have to follow the Jewish law, which Jesus said so many times you absolutely have to follow. And he said we're going to spread the message of this Jewish religion, and he called it Christianity, and let's spread it around the whole world, which is again the opposite of what Jesus said. So that's where the problem comes. There's the letters that Paul wrote, which are included in the Bible, which cause a confusion.
Carry on if you want to.
No, that's good. I'm good. So next question for you, Len. What happens if someone lives a life of sin, then repents with all their heart for the last year of their life? Interesting question.
From the higher self point of view, as a fragment of God, you are living this life, having a temporary human experience. Sin is a man-made construct because the soul came to have certain experiences, certain lessons to be learned, and the soul came to set up certain contracts with people to experience these experiences and learn these lessons. So from a religious point of view, there's no such thing as sin. It may be a lesson you had to learn, or it may be an experience you wanted to learn. There is karma, and karma is paid back. Whether you do it in this lifetime or the next lifetime or the lifetime after, it will be held accountable in order for you to deal with your karma. So what I find from a hypnotherapy point of view is that when people go into past lives and they wonder why they have shitty lives in this lifetime, they may be settling a karmic debt. And they have a difficult parent or a difficult sibling as a result of a karmic past life. And they are working through their karma. It could even be husband and wives that get together, they get married, they fall in love. 4 years down the line, They're just fighting like cat and dog. They are not meant to be together. They can't stand each other. They are settling a karmic debt. So they need to work through that karmic debt, resolve it, and then move on. If they can't resolve that karmic debt, the solution is tear up that contract and say, I forgive you unconditionally. Let's walk away from this contract. Resolve that contract and resolve that karma and walk away. That is the only other thing. So this is where I come from a hypnotherapy point of view. And this is what we find the higher self is giving the people as a solution when they're finding that they're struggling to deal with their karma, their bad past life sins, or whatever the case may be. But remember that anything you do, any choice you make in this life, if it's not from a loving place, then you are risking building more karma. And that need to be resolved at the end of the day, because it's about the balance that need to be restored at the end of the day. Tit for tat does not necessarily work. You can't use tit for tat. I'm going to get you back, blah, 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 blah. That thing, never a good idea. If you can't resolve something amicably and peacefully, it's a toxic environment. Get out of it. Walk away from it at the end of the day.
Cool. Always love is the answer, eh? Okay, so what happens if somebody does really bad things their whole life, and sort of the last minute they say, you know what, whoops, or last year, let's say, they changed their lives? Now, obviously, I would not recommend that as a plan, because you don't know when your last year will be. But according to, again, the Islamic tradition, for which for me kind of encompasses all different spiritual teachings, that there is a God who is the master of the Day of Judgment. So what I mean by that is that he can let go of every single mistake if he wants, and he presents himself. When I say he's this limitation of the English language, so you could even say she, I suppose. We should realize that God can forgive everything, and he presents himself, as I was saying, as the most gracious, the most merciful. So a lovely little story that I'll quickly get into is there was a person who had not been listening to God his whole life, and he had some regrets about it. But rather, he not even regrets. He was so scared of God that he had messed up in life, and he said, "Listen, my children, when I die, burn me up, turn me to ashes, and put my ashes in all different parts of the earth. Okay, because I'm so scared that what I've done, I'll have to account for." And so God, this is just a story, but this is an Islamic story to make a point that God put all those different parts of his body back together and said, listen, I'm the most powerful, so that was no problem for me. But what I'm interested in was, why did you make such an effort to put your ashes in all the different parts of the planet? Why were you so worried? And he said, I feared you, that I messed up. And he said, just because of that action, I'm going to forgive you. So it's really if you have enough fear of God and you really want to please God, and even if it's at the last minute, do whatever you can, because God is the most forgiving and can let you off these things. At the same time, don't be arrogant and think you're really great and that you've got nothing to worry about. That's also a big mistake. So there's another little story I can squeeze in. Now, there are two people, and one supposedly very pious person said to the other person, he said, you are definitely going to hell. So they both happened to die at the same time, and they're presented in front of God. And he said to this supposedly very pious person, you are so arrogant that you actually told another person, even though you're not God, that he's going to hell. So you're going to hell and the other person is going to heaven. So, and it makes sense, because that person was arrogant, and so he deserves some sort of punishment. Anyway, that's it. Quite happy with that. So we're on to the next one from Michael Taylor. Thank you, Michael Taylor, for your participation. The whole show, one of the reasons for the show is to encourage kind of peaceful and loving conversation, even if we're not agreeing. I can see you're not agreeing, which is fantastic. So, Mike, this one, sorry, I'm telling my 8-year-old daughter, the one on the bottom, because he said, I think that's new. This one here, sorry, that one, not really at the bottom, that one there. Yeah. Can you see Michael Taylor? N? Yeah.
That clock is still ticking already, huh?
Yeah. Can I help? I'll help you. Is that old? I don't think that's old. Just click it. Don't worry. That what I was saying was, Khalid, that you're very authoritatively and confidently. No, that's not old. Don't worry. Click it. My controller is saying I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. Doesn't matter, right? We will answer the question again if it has to be. So what I was saying was that your colleague Khalid is saying a lot very authoritatively and confidently, but he is not allowing his own view to be critiqued. Okay, cool. I think that's the same about me, quite frankly. I'm saying things authoritatively as well, yeah?
We're allowing each other that space, and that's brilliant.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think about what I should say in response. So that was my first response. So yes, we could all be wrong. You could be wrong. Len could be wrong. I could be wrong. Who knows? Let's be open to that. I think that's a wonderful way to think. Who knows, right? It could be that water does not exist. That's what I'm willing to believe if you can tell me, right? But as far as I know, this is all I'm sharing. Whatever I think is true, I'm going to tell you. And it's very important. I think one of the problems that we've had is I'm British, Len's he's South African, but British here, and we know that people don't discuss these things because they're so scared of fighting. And also, I think there's a bit of history of oppression in terms of religious beliefs, like, oh, you must believe this, otherwise, I don't know, we're going to throw stones at you or something like that. So we're not doing that here. We're saying, like, listen, let's have a lovely conversation. Let's agree to disagree if we have to, but let's share our ideas. Let's listen to each other. So I'm listening to you. Maybe I'm wrong, you know? Tell me how I'm wrong. I'd love to hear. That'll be a wonderful conversation. But there's no oppression going on here. So, like, you know, and this is a key part of Islam, which I love, which is it says in the Quran, there is no compulsion in religion. So, like, this is God. If God wanted to enforce things, he would have. So there's no way religion can enforce things because God didn't enforce things. He's given us free will. So cool. But thank you for your comment. I really appreciate that. It helped me explain a few things. Thank you. Cool. Your turn.
Remember, I come from a soul perspective. I do hypnotherapy, and when we do hypnotherapy, what we do for our clients is we bypass the conscious mind, the ego, and we go to the subconscious. And within the subconscious, we start talking and having a conversation because you're a multidimensional being. The subconscious exists outside of space and time in the higher dimensions. And in the higher dimensions, depending on what vibrational level you are talking to, they have a perspective there from what's going on the earth plane outside of space and time. So they already see what happened, past tense, 20 years from the future, 30 years into the future. They already see that we've gone through the whole period of upheaval that they're talking about, that from our perspective, because time is linear from the third dimensional perspective, we still have to go through this period of upheaval, the times of change. So from their perspective, they are giving us the guidance. However, because it's the collective subconscious making decisions, they change their minds. Then as a result, outcomes, timelines keep changing. So you will find that things that Nostradamus predicted may not have come to pass because timelines have changed. You will find that anybody who's predicting anything will not necessarily tell you this is cast in stone because timelines change. So what we're doing from a perspective is that we get the guidance from the higher self, the beings in the higher, what we call extra dimensionals. We get a lot of information from them. Now, from the higher dimension perspective, you can speak to Jesus, you can speak to Buddha, you can speak to Muhammad, you can speak to any ascended master, you can speak to any archangel, you can speak to the higher self collective. They are 6 density entities, where we are 3rd density entities here where we are. 6, 3, quite a large distance. We have millions of years to work to eventually arrive as 6 density entities, but we will eventually get there. But for where we are now, when we start getting stuff from higher dimensional beings that are meant to be our guides, our guardians, those who help us to ascend to the higher dimensions, we do take note of what they are saying. A lot of people are recording these sessions, because we do record it to give it to our clients. They record stuff and they post it on YouTube. You can go and look up Suzanne Spooner and the stuff she's been recording. You can look up a number of QHHT sessions online that people have posted that are all guiding us through this process of change that are coming. And they seem to all be saying the same thing. And there's a wealth of information we can pull from that. So I'm not sucking things out of thin air. We are speaking to higher dimensional beings. There we go.
Cool. Okay. Would it make a difference if they knew when they were going to die? I think it's like we knew when we were going to die or something. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is I think all of these questions are interesting. So I'm going to keep saying that, right? So let's start from the Quran. What does it say? It says, like, if there are people who would die, and when they come to meet their maker, they'll say, give us another chance, we will change our ways. And it's not true that they won't change their ways, they'll make the same mistakes. How do we know that? Okay, well, it's not as if we don't know we're going to die. Like, we even know that there's an average, length of life, which is 80 years for men, 81 for women, right? So it's not like you don't know you're going to live for a certain amount of time, but we are generally very oblivious. Like, when was the last time you thought that you're going to die? Well, actually, me personally, I have this, some people have this kind of sort of extreme awareness or a realization of our mortality, and I've had that since I was very young. So I'm constantly thinking about that, and religion encourages you to think that this is going to be your last day, as it were. But generally, we are quite oblivious to it, right? And so we pretend as if we're going to be here forever, and we don't really plan our lives. That's what is a cause of much of our depression nowadays, that we don't think or plan for our whole lives, and then we've got an inbuilt conscience which is designed to tell us if we're wasting our time on this planet. And so if we don't live with purpose, and psychologists have shown, there's a fantastic book, well, I can't say it's a fantastic book, but I've heard from the psychologist, a famous psychologist, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning or something, top psychologist. And he says that's one of the key things we need in life. If we don't have a purpose. We're lost. Okay, so what I'm saying is that would it make a difference? I'm not sure. I don't think it would make any difference. If anything, it would paralyze us because we would panic. A lot of us would go, oh my God, we've got 1 year left. What are we going to do? But what I'm saying is, in the big picture of this show about mental health, if we look at the big picture and live according to that, we'll be much happier, because we'll be much more happier with the constructive way we're living. That's what I've got to say about that for now.
Well said. Yes.
Thank you.
One of the things that I've learned as a hypnotherapist from the soul perspective, when you start speaking to the higher self and you have access to this thing called the Akashic Records, which is known as the Book of Life. The Book of Life meaning you can see when you're supposed to live, when you're supposed to die, and what was your purpose, what did you do, did you accomplish your goals that you set out to come achieve in this lifetime. The higher self will always never tell you. Every soul that comes into the earth plane comes with a package of plans that they made up before they came down. They came with their learning experiences, what lessons that they want to come and learn. They come with a set of experiences that they want to encounter. They come with any karmic debts they need to settle. They come with a set of contracts. Who's going to be the key players in that little play that you set up called life? Who's going to be the mummy, the daddy, and the grandpa and grandma and the children you want to have? Then they also have this thing called your exit plan, your exit strategy. You will never consciously know your exit strategy. Very few people do. I think Tesla knew, and that was one record of someone. Nikola Tesla knew his exit plan, his exit strategy, because he was just so well connected and aligned with his soul at soul purpose that he knew when his exit strategy was going to play itself out. But other than that, we are not given our exit strategy on a conscious level, subconsciously maybe. And you can actually, in a hypnotherapy session, take someone through his own death experience at the end of his life, but it's not advisable. We don't normally do that, but I know it's possible to do so. You don't want somebody to know how he's going to die and when he's going to die, not necessarily. Never a good idea. So with that information, we know that this is what the soul came to do. This is a temporary school. Earth is a school. It's one of the most difficult schools in the universe. The lessons we come to learn here are the hardest to learn in the universe. If somebody decides to come into the earth plane and say, I want to learn something called betrayal, what it feels like to be betrayed, you need to set up the situation where you're going to fall in love with someone, you're going to have family, and they're going to betray you, and it's going to be painful to experience that. No soul would choose that. But other than that, in the higher dimensions, to them it's all theory in a book. And unless they come and learn the practical here on the earth plane, they wouldn't know what it's like. So if someone wants to learn betrayal, if somebody wants to learn something like what it's like to die on a fire, then that would be their experience they would want to choose, and you have to allow them to do so. So if those people pass on, it's never because they've been taken from us too soon. It was part of the soul's exit strategy.
Cool. Yep. Saying yes to the controller. Click on the next question. Awesome. You're doing a good job. Well done, Sundays. Very good. Even sitting down for that long is pretty hard for an 8-year-old. It's good. Okay. So do you know of anyone who has experienced any recent supernatural communication with God today? So that's interesting. You say supernatural. That's just some sort of communication. So there are, of course, there's different kinds of communication. I would say I've got a spiritual leader called a Khalifa. That's kind of actually. Let me quickly introduce the idea of a Khalifa. After every prophet, including people like Jesus and whoever, Prophet Muhammad, there's always these people who continue the work that they've done. Religions don't just fall flat on their face suddenly afterwards. So those people are called successors, or Khalifa in Arabic, which is according to the word given in the Islamic system, but it's a system throughout. And so he's continuously guided. So that would be an example. And maybe you want to check him out. Mirza Masroor Ahmad, he's current Khalifa. So you can YouTube him or Google him. That would be a person you might want to check out. Me personally, or my experience, my supernatural experiences, I suppose, would be only in the sense that God is constantly helping me. I don't talk to lots of people about their spiritual experiences too much. I'm often focused on myself, but yeah, so those kind of experiences are, as soon as I need money comes from weird places. It's like absolutely crazy. And it's not just people, I like to point out, it's not just people who are spiritual. like Elon Musk, big fan of his. So you hear from it, if you're a big fan of his, you'll know his story that everything was about to finish. Like all his money had run out, and literally on his last day, NASA called him up and said, "Here's money to carry on your business." And if it wasn't for that, the whole Tesla, the solar panel, all these amazing enterprises would have been finished like that. These are people who don't even believe in God, and they've had these experiences. Richard Branson, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a big fan of entrepreneurs. I'm always checking out their stories.
Yes.
He was on a hot air balloon. I'm sure some of us older people know about Richard Branson. I think some of the younger people won't have a clue. But he used to do these amazing daredevil stunts, going on hot air balloons high up in the sky, going 100 miles an hour. And he said that something strange happened once when he was certain he was going to die, and then he kind of fell asleep or something, woke up, and all the dials were like working themselves, and he miraculously stayed alive. So supernatural experiences for everybody.
Yes, I do find for the work that I do as a hypnotherapist, a lot of what we do is exploring what we call consciousness on the higher dimensions, higher vibrational levels, and so on. So for me to access the divine essence of the person that I'm speaking to is about speaking with God. And very often the experience itself is not just me having a conversation with somebody, but there's an energy that comes into the room, a really powerful energy. And that energy, that source energy that permeates the room and begins to flow through you, is the most remarkable experience. And I do find it happen every time I take someone into a state of a hypnotic trance and start calling forth the higher dimensional beings from source to come and speak to us. I myself, when I started doing my energy work as part of my esoteric spirituality, my experience started out with what we call Kundalini awakening. There's the premise of that is that at the base of your spine of every individual, there's a limitless, vast pool of energy, and you can use several breathing and meditational techniques in order to cause that energy from the base of your spine to crawl up the spine towards the crown chakra, the head area, and it feels like it literally pushes out and explodes out of your head and goes around your body and comes in again at your feet and comes up again at your head and over you, and it's like a fountain circulating over you. It's the most remarkable experience. It's like having a constant exuberant experience of joy. It's one of the most powerful experiences ever, and anybody who has had a Kundalini rising experience will attest to that. It's a really powerful experience. I find that when you start singing certain frequencies, there are certain solfeggio tones that we can pick up on YouTube, and some of those solfeggio tones help with this whole Kundalini rising experience as well. When I start singing them with a simple or whatever the case may be, I can feel the energy already rising through my body. I've been so attuned to certain experiences with vibratory sounds. When I sing it like that, it's like it pushes up from within my spine, through my back, up and out through my head. It's rather a powerful experience. So that is a typical supernatural experience. But then sitting within a session with a client where we are calling forth the source energy to have a conversation with him about what is this person's purpose, what is he supposed to be doing in this lifetime, then the energy in the room is really thick and tangible. It's quite powerful as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, Len. So we're just winding up here. I just want to do more of my thank yous because I'm so grateful, and it's very much, this is a happiness show, and gratefulness is a very, a key quality. If you don't have that, you're not going to be a happy person. So let me be thankful to Len. I so much appreciate you being here. It's just fantastic. You just add to the energy of the show and create a different dynamic rather than me just talking all the time. So I love that. I want to say thank you to all the people who asked their questions. You just made the show fantastic because of your questions. I appreciate people who disagreed with me. That was fantastic as well. I'm not sure, but I kind of want to encourage that. Like, disagree with me. I say something, Len says something, say it's wrong. Probably don't swear at us or something. You know what I mean? But and Michael, you did not do that, so I love that you didn't, swear at us or anything like that. Lovely and I really appreciate you taking part, and everybody else for taking part. And just for the last few seconds, shall we put Len's website up, Cinders? Can you do that? Awesome. Look at that. She's on the board. Look at that. So I'm going to have fun trying to say this. Orini Quantum Healing. Is that right?
That's the one. Yes.
You've got the last. Oh, okay. Time's run out. But anyway, the point is, Len's website and how to find him is in the description. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great week. I hope you have a great week, brother.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Salam.